Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant. Today I want to challenge something that almost every military family believes. Most people think the military pays modestly. They believe you serve because of duty, purpose, patriotism, or adventure. And while all those things may be true, they often overlook something much bigger. They overlook the financial system quietly operating in the background of military service. Now, let me explain what I mean. Imagine two families standing side by side 25 years ago. One family enters the civilian workforce. The other raises their right hand and joins the military. The civilian family earns a larger paycheck almost immediately. Friends congratulate them. Neighbors admire their new salary. Life appears to be moving in exactly the right direction. The military family, on the other hand, packs boxes every few years, deployment interruptions, birthdays, moves interrupt careers, children change schools, long hours become normal. From the outside, it looks like they are sacrificing financially. Fast forward 25 years, the civilian family is wondering whether retirement is even possible. Healthcare costs are becoming frightening. Investment accounts are smaller than expected. The mortgage still isn't completely paid off. Retirement has become a question mark instead of a destination. The military family tells a very different story. A pension arrives every month. Healthcare costs remain manageable. Their investment accounts have continued growing. Some receive tax-free VA disability compensation. Some transferred education benefits to their children. Many purchase homes using the VA loans. Their retirement income comes from multiple sources instead of one paycheck. Now, here's the fascinating question. What happened? Did the military families suddenly become financial geniuses? Well, not necessarily. Did they earn dramatically higher salaries? Well, usually not. The difference is that one family unknowingly spent decades inside one of the most powerful financial ecosystems in America. Most people never recognize it while they're living it. Today, I want to pull back the curtain because if you're serving today, or if you're approaching retirement, or you're a military spouse helping make financial decisions, you may already possess advantages that millions of America would gladly trade places to have. The tragedy is that many military families never recognize those advantages until it's too late. Some leave the military early, some never invest, some never fully use the military benefits. Some make decisions that unintentionally weaken their very financial advantage they spent years earning. My goal today isn't simply to teach you about military benefits. You've probably heard people explain the VA loan. You've probably heard someone explain the Thrift Savings Plan. You've probably heard discussions about pension or TRICARE. Those conversations are valuable, but today we're going to look at something much bigger. We're going to examine how every one of these benefits connects to every other benefit. Because wealth is rarely created by one great financial decision. It's created by dozens of advantages working together over decades. That's what military families have. Not isolated benefits, a complete financial system. And once you understand that system, you'll never look at the military career the same way again. One of the biggest mistakes people make is comparing military compensation to civilian salaries. Someone says, I can make $20,000 more if I leave. Maybe they could. Sometimes that's absolutely true. But that's also one of the most incomplete financial calculations a person can make, because salary is only one piece of compensation. Real wealth isn't built by focusing on income alone. It's built by understanding the total compensation. When I was younger, I thought exactly the same way many young service members think today. A bigger paycheck must mean a bigger financial future. That sounds logical. But experience has taught me something entirely different. Two people can earn identical salaries and retire with completely different lives. One struggles, the other enjoys financial freedom. The difference isn't always income. Often it's the financial structure surrounding that income. Military families live inside a financial structure that quietly removes many of the largest expenses ordinary family spends decades fighting. Think about healthcare. Think about retirement. Think about education. Think about housing. Think about tax advantages. Think about survivor benefits. Think about steady employment. Think about leadership development. Think about retirement income. Think about disability protection. Individually, each benefit matters. Together, they become transformational. Let's begin with the foundation. The hidden financial advantage isn't the amount of money the military pays you. The hidden advantage is that the government helps absorb risk that civilian families often carry entirely on their own. And risk is expensive, very expensive. One unexpected illness can destroy years of savings. One housing mistake can delay retirement. One major medical diagnosis can bankrupt an otherwise successful family. One economic recession can erase years of progress. Military life certainly has risk: deployment, frequent moves, time away from family, operational stress. Those realities are very real. But financially speaking, many of life's largest risks are dramatically reduced, and that's something most people don't appreciate until much later. When I worked as an attorney, I saw a family whose financial problems didn't begin because they were irresponsible. They began because life happened. Someone got sick, someone lost a job, someone faced an unexpected emergency. Those events changed everything. Later, as a VA adjudicator, I met veterans from every imaginable background. Some had accumulated extraordinary wealth after service. Others struggled despite having access to the exact same benefits. The difference usually wasn't intelligence, it wasn't luck, it wasn't even income, it was understanding. The people who learned how military benefits work together consistently made better long-term decisions. They understood something many others never discovered. Military benefits aren't individual prizes, they're building blocks. Each one supports another. Each one reduces financial pressure somewhere else. Each one creates opportunities that become larger over time. Think of building a bridge. One beam by itself doesn't carry much weight, but connect enough beams together with the proper foundation and suddenly you've created something capable of supporting thousands of tons. That's exactly how military wealth works. One benefit alone may not change your life. Stack enough of them together and they become incredibly powerful. Now here's another way to think about it. Imagine trying to climb a mountain carrying a heavy backpack. Every expense you face is another rock added to that backpack. Medical bills, housing costs, retirement uncertainty, college tuition, insurance, long-term care, unexpected emergencies. Now, imagine someone quietly removing one rock after another while you continue climbing. The climb becomes easier. Not because the mountain changed, but because the weight changed. That's what military benefits often do. They don't eliminate every challenge, but they reduce enough financial weight that reaching the summit becomes much more achievable. And here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Most military families become accustomed to those advantages. They stop noticing them. Healthcare becomes normal. Housing allowances become normal. Tax advantages become normal. Education benefits become normal. Retirement planning becomes normal. It's a little like breathing clean air. You rarely think about it until it's gone. Then suddenly you realize how valuable it really was. As you watch today's discussion, I want you to do something. Stop thinking about individual benefits. Instead, begin asking yourself one question. How do these advantages work together? Because that's where real wealth begins. Not with a bigger paycheck, but with a bigger system. And military families, whether they realize it or not, are already standing inside one of the best financial systems available. Now, in this next section, we're going to look at the first major hidden advantage that changes everything. One of the greatest financial lessons I have learned over the years is that wealth is not simply about earning more. It's about keeping more, protecting more, growing more, and allowing time to do the heavy lifting. That's where military families often have an advantage that isn't obvious at first glance. Now, let's start with retirement. When most Americans think about retirement, they imagine one large investment account. Maybe it's a 401k, maybe an IRA, hopefully, Social Security. That's often the entire plan. Military families have an opportunity to build something much more resilient. Think about this for a moment, okay? I want everybody to think about this. Imagine a table with only one leg. It doesn't matter how strong that leg is, the table is unstable. Now imagine a table with 4 or 5 strong legs. If one weakens, the others continue supporting the weight. Financial security works exactly the same way. Military families have the opportunity to build multiple streams of retirement income: a military pension, a thrift savings plan, Social Security, personal investments, VA disability compensation for those who qualify, civil service retirement for those who continue into federal employment, rental income if they choose to invest in real estate. Notice what happens? No single source has to carry the entire burden. That's an enormous advantage because retirement isn't simply about having money, it's about reducing uncertainty. Every additional income stream creates another layer of confidence. Instead of wondering whether one investment account will last 30 years, you begin building a retirement that can withstand market fluctuations, inflation, unexpected expenses, and changing circumstances. That's why I often tell people not to chase the biggest paycheck. Build the strongest financial foundation. They're not always the same thing. Now let's talk about the Thrift Savings Plan. People often describe the TSP by saying it has low fees. That's true, but I think that explanation is far too small. The real advantage isn't just the low expenses, it's the discipline the system quietly encourages. Contributions happen automatically. Investing becomes consistent. Emotions play a smaller role. Now, over decades, consistency almost always beats occasional brilliance. Many investors spend years trying to predict the perfect time to invest. The military member contributing every pay period may unknowingly outperform them simply because they remain consistent. That's the power of systems. Systems outperform motivation. Habits outperform inspiration. Consistency outperforms excitement. And the military life naturally encouraged consistency in many areas. The same principle applies to housing. Now, let's talk about the VA home loan. People usually focus on one feature: no down payment. That's certainly valuable, but again, the hidden advantage is much larger. The VA loan allows military families to preserve capital. Instead of spending a massive down payment, many families keep more money instead. Some use that capital to build emergency funds, others invest, others pay down higher interest debt. Others purchase additional property later in life. Money that remains invested has the opportunity to compound. Money tied up unnecessarily cannot. That's why financial decisions should never be evaluated in isolation. Every dollar has another job it could be doing. The VA loan creates options, and financial flexibility is incredibly valuable. Okay? Now, let's shift to something that receives far less attention than it deserves: healthcare. Healthcare may be the most underestimated financial advantage military retirees possess. Ask almost anyone approaching retirement what worries them. You hear inflation, you hear market downturns, you hear running out of money, but sooner or later, healthcare enters the conversation. Medical costs have disrupted countless retirement plans. Families who save diligently suddenly begin spending thousands every month on premiums, prescriptions, deductibles, unexpected treatments. Military retirees often approach retirement from an entirely different position. Does that mean healthcare is free? No, it's not. It doesn't. Does it eliminate every concern? Of course it doesn't. But compared to what many civilian retirees experience, it can represent a tremendous financial advantage over an entire lifetime. Again, notice the pattern. It's not one giant benefit, it's one less financial burden, one less source of uncertainty, one less expense competing with retirement income. Now, let's talk about education. When people hear the words GI Bill, many think only about college. College is certainly important, but education is much broader than earning a degree. Education creates opportunity. Opportunity creates income. Income creates options. Military families often have educational opportunities available not only for themselves, but in many cases for spouses and children as well. Now, think about what that means across generations. Imagine one generation graduating without overwhelming student loan debt. Imagine entering adulthood with greater financial flexibility. Imagine beginning your career already several years ahead financially. That's how generational wealth begins, not necessarily with millions of dollars, but with each generation starting from a stronger position than the one before. One of the reasons I enjoy these conversations is because I want people to stop viewing military benefits as temporary rewards. They're long-term financial accelerators. When used intentionally, they change family trees. They change retirement outcomes. They change educational outcomes. They change opportunities that extend far beyond the individual service member. Let's talk about something that people rarely include in financial discussion. That's leadership. At first glance, leadership doesn't appear on a balance sheet. You can't deposit leadership into a checking account. You can't measure it with a calculator. But leadership creates value. Employers pay for leadership. Organizations promote leadership. Businesses grow because of leadership. Military service develops something that many companies spend millions trying to teach: decision-making under pressure, accountability, discipline, adaptability, communication, planning, execution. These aren't just leadership traits, they're economic assets. Over an entire career, they often translate into higher earning potential, stronger professional networks, and increased opportunities after military service. That's another hidden advantage. Now, let's pause for just a moment. Notice what's happening. We've discussed retirement, investing, housing, healthcare, education, leadership. None of these advantages alone guarantees wealth, but every one of them increases the probability of long-term financial success. That's the point. Military wealth isn't magic. It's mathematics. Small advantages, repeated consistently over decades. Begin stacking those advantages together and something remarkable happens. The gap between military families who intentionally use their benefits and those who don't becomes enormous. In the final part of today's conversation, I want to bring all of the pieces together because there is one hidden advantage that sits above every other benefit we've discussed. It's the advantage that transforms isolated benefits into a complete wealth building system. And once you understand it, you'll never think about military service the same way. Now, if you stay with me this far, I hope you're beginning to see military service through a different lens. Not simply as a career, not simply as public service, but as a financial ecosystem. And ecosystems are powerful because every part supports another. This brings us to what I believe is the greatest hidden financial advantage military families have. It isn't the pension, it isn't the Thrift Savings Plan, it isn't the VA home loan, it isn't TRICARE, it isn't even VA disability compensation. It's understanding how to intentionally stack every one of those advantages together. That's where the real wealth is created. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. Imagine someone hands you pieces of an extraordinary machine. Every gear, every bolt, every panel, every wire. Individual pieces have value, but scattered across the floor, they accomplish very little. Now, imagine someone who understands how every piece connects. Suddenly, that same collection of parts becomes a machine capable of producing incredible results. Military benefits work exactly the same way. Many families collect benefits, very few build systems, and systems change lives. Here's what I mean, okay? A young service member contributes consistently to the Thrift Savings Plan. They use the VA home loan to purchase a home. A few years later, they receive PCS orders. Instead of selling immediately, they evaluate whether keeping the property as a rental makes financial sense for their situation. They continue investing. They complete additional education using military benefits. Leadership experience opens new career opportunities after military service. If they qualify for VA disability compensation, it provides tax-free income that strengthens their overall retirement picture. If they continue into federal service, they add another retirement system to the foundation they've already built. Notice what happened? None of those decisions were extraordinary by themselves. Together, they become extraordinary. That's the hidden advantage. Small decisions repeated consistently, supported by benefits that reinforce one another. Over 20 or 30 years, those decisions begin producing outcomes that appear remarkable to people looking only at income. People often ask, How do they build so much financial security? The answer usually isn't one lucky investment. It isn't winning the lottery. It isn't timing the stock market perfectly. It's decades of stacking advantages, one after another, one after another, one after another. Now, let me say something that may surprise you. Military families don't automatically become wealthy. I've met many retired officers living paycheck to paycheck. I've met enlisted retirees who became financially independent. I've met veterans with incredible benefits who never even fully used them. I've also met veterans of modest rank who quietly built extraordinary wealth. Rank alone doesn't determine financial success. Income alone doesn't determine financial success. Knowledge does. Intentionality does. Consistency does. That's one of the reasons I started this channel. For more than 2 decades, I've worked inside systems where I've watched thousands of veterans make financial decisions. Some excellent, some heartbreaking. Again and again, I noticed a pattern. The veterans who asked better questions usually made better decisions. They weren't necessarily smarter, they simply became students of the system. They learned how retirement connected to healthcare, how healthcare connected to financial independence, how disability compensation influenced retirement planning, how education influenced earning potential, how investing influenced every stage of life. They stopped looking at isolated pieces, they started seeing the entire picture. That's what I hope today's conversation has helped you begin doing. There's another lesson I'd like to leave with you. Sometimes people compare military service to civilian employment as though the only measurement that matters is annual salary. That's actually understandable. Salary is easy to compare. But wealth is much harder to measure because wealth isn't just about what comes into your checking account this month. It's about reducing financial stress over the next 40 years. It's about having options. It's about protecting your family. It's about sleeping peacefully at night because your financial foundation is stronger than most people realize. That's a different kind of wealth. Now, if you're currently serving, I hope this video encourages you to look more carefully at the opportunities already surrounding you. Don't wait until retirement to understand your benefits. Master them while you still can shape your future. If you're approaching retirement, begin asking how every benefit can support the next chapter of your life. Don't simply separate from military service. Transition strategically. And if you're already retired, remember something important. Many of these advantages continue creating opportunities long after you've taken off the uniform. Continue learning, continue investing, continue planning, continue mentoring younger military families. Because one of the greatest gifts you can leave behind isn't money, it's wisdom. Wisdom that helps someone else avoid expensive mistake. Wisdom that allows another family to retire with confidence instead of fear. Wisdom that transforms information into action. Before we close, I'd like you to think back to the story we began with. 2 families, 2 careers, 2 financial journeys. One appeared to earn more money. The other quietly accumulated advantages year after year. By retirement, the difference wasn't simply income. The difference was the system. That's the lesson. Military service isn't just a profession. When understood correctly, it's one of the most powerful long-term financial platforms available to ordinary Americans. The challenge is that it only reaches its full potential when you understand how every piece works together. And now you do. If this conversation changed the way you think about military service, I'd like for you to do 2 things. First, share this video with another military family, not because I need another view, but because someone you know may be standing on top of an extraordinary opportunities without realizing it. Second, I'd like you to leave a comment below and answer this question. Which military benefit do you think is the most underrated? I'd love to hear your perspective because some of the best future conversations on this channel come directly from your experiences and your questions. And if you're serious about building long-term military wealth, make sure you subscribe because that's exactly what we do here. We don't chase headlines. We don't chase hype. We build understanding. We make complex systems simple. And we help military families make better decisions that will serve them not just next month, but for decades to come. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. I never take your time for granted. Until next time, continue making wise decisions, continue investing in your future, continue serving your family with excellence, and continue building the life you've earned. And so there you have it. I wish you all blessings and blessings. Shalom.